Hi TJ. Tej. You probably hate that. Quite rightly so. That was a great story you told about the accident where you were forced to go into another lane because of a bit of rubbish or something on the road. That was really quite cool. And it kind of reminded me of something similar that happened to me. So I thought I'd relate it to you. A few years ago, quite a few years ago, the company that I worked for, I was going out with one of the girls that worked in the office. I know what you're saying, you should never dip your pen in the company ink, but I was young, I was foolish, I was in love. Well, 2 out of 3 anyway. But and I used to give her a lift home, obviously, being the gentleman that I am. And one night, uh, I can't remember what it was, but there was something that she had to stay back. Well, she was a clerk, so it was probably a paperwork pile up of some sort. Anyway, I went home alone that night, and I was driving. I'd just learned. I think it'd maybe only been a couple of months previous that I'd actually passed my driving test, and I was driving my dad's Ford Fiesta. I don't know if you had Fiestas in the States. They probably give them another name. It's just a little 3-door hatchback. My dad, it was one of those instances where he said, "Learn to drive, and I'll give you the car," because I'm getting another one. If you learn to drive, the car's yours. So that was the arrangement. So anyway, I was driving home, and it was kind of like about this time of the year. It was kind of getting twilighty at 5 o'clock when we were, going home. And like you, I always tried to find the best way home, to get home as quickly as I possibly could. And rather than use the main roads through Dundee, I chose all the little back streets. And this involved a crossroads, going over a crossroads, which the road that I was crossing was actually coming in from the countryside. And it was one of those old roads in Dundee, which was built presumably during the time of horse and carts. So it wasn't particularly wide, and because there was a row of houses on one side that didn't have drives, all the cars were parked on the street, so it was effectively a single lane. So anyway, I came to this junction and looked, left, looked right, looked left again, and it was kind of, it was dark-ish, and you know how your subconscious takes over a lot when you're driving. Have you ever had that feeling when you've gone over a junction or through, a roundabout or whatever, and you think, but after you've, passed it, you think, God, did I look? But you did, because your subconscious sort of kind of takes over. Well, at that kind of time of day, you know that other cars should have their headlights on, so you're looking for the headlights rather than the cars. So anyway, I got to the junction, nothing coming, put the car in gear, rolled it over the junction, and boom, bang! Everything just slowed down and sped up simultaneously, if that makes any sense. My world just started spinning. There was this ringing in my ears, and the next thing I knew, I was on the other side of the road, facing up the way. In fact, I was actually on the as I say, the opposite side of the road, but on the other lane, the lane coming up the way. So I was actually spun right around. I was actually on the path, so it was a good job there wasn't anybody on the pavement. And as I say, facing up, I'd actually been spun 180 degrees. And as the world sort of coalesced around me again, I remember I had all these bits of glass embedded in the side of my head. The window had shattered into those tiny little safety glass pieces, but they'd all embedded into the side of my head. And the car was sitting at a very odd angle, and basically resembled a big banana. It was actually, the car was kind of curved. And it wasn't until actually, considerably later, that same day, after I got home and sort of, assessed the situation, that I realised that if my girlfriend had been with me, because when I looked down at the seat, the car that hit me was quite a low car, and where it came and impacted the door, it bent the door sort of in the way, kind of like that. There's the seat, so the door was kind of bent in like that and came down on top of the seat, so it actually pulverised the seat base. The seat back was actually knocked in behind me, and the door was just a complete, that side of the vehicle was just a complete mess. So had she been there, she would have either, well, when I say seriously injured, I'm quite sure she would have been annihilated by the impact of this car. strangely enough, I wasn't actually, other than the embedded glass. I looked like the James Bond baddie on Die Another Day, with the diamonds in his face. Well, that's what I was like, on these little bits of glass. Because I remember when I went to someone's house to phone the police, I put the phone to my ear, all these little bits of glass were falling off. Must have looked quite cool, actually. But it was just that thought that hadn't there been that pile up of paperwork, say that 10 times fast, pile of paperwork, that day, and she'd been in the car, the consequences are just, I mean, I still think about, every time I come to a crossroads or a junction, I still think about that to this day. But there is another way of looking at it, in that if she was actually there, you know, as we went to the car, as I went to the car by myself, all I had to do was open my door, get in, start the ignition and away. Had she been there, I'd have gone round and opened the door for her, and then when we got in, probably would have, you know, exchanged a few words or whatever. Because for that accident to happen, for me to be crossing the road just at that time when that car sideswiped me, you know, there was probably a 2-second window that if things had to occur in, and I had to pull out at the right moment. I mean, if I'd been 2 seconds later, you know, the car would have gone in behind me, or if I'd been 2 seconds, you know, earlier, it would have gone in front of me, and slammed on the brakes. So there's lots of factors affecting it, but it still does make you think. A point to note was that the car that hit me, there's always a lighter side to everything, for me, not for the people who owned the car, but the car that hit me was a Lancia Delta Integrale rally spec sports car, which had just spent 2 years in the workshop being fully restored to its rally glory, and this was its first trip out. And courtesy of me, I totally rearranged its front end. Technically the accident was my fault, but the police later found out, you know, when they come and they take measurements and where I ended up, for my car to end up so far away from the impact site, they reckoned that he was doing maybe 50, 55 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and also he didn't have his headlights on. So there was no way I would have seen this low car down this single street with all these cars parked. One way or another, had I even nosed myself out, I would have lost the front end, or there was going to be an accident, let's put it that way. But I remember when I got out my car and walked up to where this other car was, where it hit, the way it hit me, it kind of sort of pushed its whole front end down, and the radiator had sprung a leak in 2 places, just at each side. And what was left of the headlamps, the way they were crushed, it looked like eyes with tears, you know, squirting out. And I just remember laughing. When the guys got out of the car, I said to myself, right Gary, you're just about to get one almighty thump in the face. Be prepared. So I was all ready for that, but when I looked down at this poor little car, because it had been sort of pushed down into the road as well, it just looked so sorry for itself. It was really quite funny. But again, it's you know, fate waving its magic wand, I suppose, or is it a guardian angel, or whatever it is you want to call it. But I still keep thinking of the possibilities that may have actually occurred that day. But they didn't, and as they say, you know, if you dwell on the past, it just crimps the future, doesn't it? Or crimps the present. But anyway, there you go. Catch you again, mate. See ya.